So, you're going to chop.
What am I chopping? Oh, courgettes.
Well, onion and garlic.
Okay.
I hope we've got some more passata or something.
Did you get the courgettes out?
No.
Well, I don't think we've got any.
Is there not one? Sure there's not one courgette in there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just not sure. Passata or some tomato.
The following conversation comes with a trigger warning regarding baby loss. Jon and I lost our daughter Alma at 6 months in the womb through a late-stage termination due to medical reasons. We discussed the pregnancy, the procedure, her birth and her funeral. At certain points we express a dark humour which could be uncomfortable for some listeners. This was and still is one of our ways of processing the grief, and as always we try to be as honest as possible in sharing our experience, in the hope that it may help others feel less alone. Baby Loss Awareness Week, now in its 20th year, is a wonderful opportunity to bring us together as a community and give anyone touched by pregnancy and baby loss a safe and supportive space to share their experiences and feel that they are not alone. You can find out more at babyloss-awareness.org.
So how do we talk about Alma?
I think we start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Finding out we were pregnant.
Which was?
On the afternoon before we went to the Neil Young gig in Liverpool. And I remember being really gutted that I couldn't drink.
Yeah. Neil Young couldn't. Yeah.
Because it wasn't expected, it wasn't planned or anything, was it? I think it was just like, okay, I'm pregnant, we're going to be parents. And then we went to the gig and I just remember like from that moment, I remember crying. I remember being absolutely, in some ways, devastated because I'd not long started my job.
Should I put that onion in while you're chopping?
Yeah, take the board.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah, you hadn't been.
Yeah, and I knew that, and I was young. I must have been about 30, which and I guess that still felt young. I didn't feel ready. I just started this job that I was really enjoying as an agent, and I knew that it was going to be an issue, and it was just going to mean a huge change to our life. And I think our friends didn't really have babies at the time. We were the first
it's true.
people to...
Our friends in Manchester.
Yeah. To get pregnant. And but then I guess we kind of like got our heads around it, and then start to plan and expect.
Yeah, I can't remember. I find the whole timeline of it all quite confusing now, but well, not but when, like, at what point did we decide, okay, we're going to go for this? Because something changed, didn't it? Did we just decide it was...
I think we just thought, we might as well, like, if I've got pregnant, then we know that we want to have kids at some point, then let's figure it out. And I spoke to my boss, and she was like, well, we'll figure something out, how we can do it. And, we were incredibly naive, and like, maybe we could just bring the baby into the office, and like, as if. And then... and then we went for the first scan at 12 weeks, and everything seemed to be fine, because it's just, they can't pick up on stuff, can they?
Yeah, and I guess at that point you have kind of got your head around it, and you are starting to plan, and your expectations have changed, I guess, haven't they?
Yeah, because that's it, once you get past the first 12 weeks, isn't it, you think, alright, there's very little likelihood that anything's going to be wrong, or because you just don't really hear about it. You don't hear about it, so that feels like the big scan. And then. What did we start doing after that point? Did we start? Because I feel like we didn't really do much. I feel like we just decided from an early stage that we weren't going to plan. We weren't going to start doing the crazy thing of buying all the stuff. Yeah, but my mum bought us a pram. She went to an auction.
Yeah.
And she brought back this beautiful. What are those big old traditional prams?
It's not like not Goldcrest.
Goldcrest? Is it Goldcrest? It might be Goldcrest.
Yeah, the old style ones.
Yeah, the really beautiful old ones. And I remember looking at it thinking, this looks really low down and really small. Just like, no, it's a proper Goldcrest pram. And I was like, oh, well, it's beautiful and it symbolises whatever, the baby arriving. And it's like, isn't it meant to be like really bad luck to buy a pram anyway beforehand? Right. And it wasn't, it was a toy pram.
It was a toy one.
It was a toy pram.
But it was like a proper one.
Yeah,
it was just like a miniature version of it.
Like a 10-year-old girl's toy pram.
From when? Like the 70s or 80s or something? Or
50s. I think 40s or 50s.
Actually that old.
Yeah. So we had this beautiful pram in the hallway.
Prince.
And I remember it was around the 12-week mark, I think, that I started or maybe it was even earlier than that actually, that I started writing and drawing again. And I'd not written or drawn for quite a while, and especially not since we've been back in Manchester, and my job was very much about facilitating other people's creativity. And I remember just opening my sketch pad and drawing animals and vegetables and wanting to write, just kind of little short things, and it felt very welcome. It felt like a relief, like, okay, this is still in me because I've not done it in so long. How should I chop the courgettes? Do you think?
Maybe another one?
Yeah, it was good. Should I do them quite small?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And that felt like a real relief, and I rediscovered a part of me that I'd lost confidence in and hadn't really allowed myself the time to do. I guess also because so much of my creative time went into socialising.
Yeah.
And we weren't socialising in the same way.
We sort of realised quite quickly, didn't we, that because you were so tied in those first 3 months, weren't you?
Yeah.
It really hit you with her.
That's it. I remember I started writing a diary again for the first time. I wonder where that diary is actually.
I think that's what it was. Do you think it was? Yeah, I was going to say, do you think it was because of that? Because our life changed already at that point.
Yeah, I think our life changed, and I guess also because when you're creating, there's something really, it's the ultimate creation. You're creating a child, and I've heard other mothers say this, that it's often been quite a productive and prolific creative time for them when they've been pregnant. And so then we had our 20-week scan, and after the scan, that was it, because I went for the scan on my own, and the woman said that that's it. She was moving around so much that she couldn't see the heart.
Yeah.
And so I felt really guilty, because I thought, oh, that must be because I had to run to the appointment.
Right.
And I ran into your boss Mark afterwards, and I remember saying to him, they couldn't see her properly. And I wonder if they had already noticed something. I was like, right, we need to pinpoint this, and I can't make any assessments now but they didn't say anything because they didn't want to worry us. And I said to him, it was maybe my fault. Next time I'll get a taxi to the scan. And so for the next one...
Yeah, but when was the next one? How long did they leave it?
I can't remember. It must have been the next day or something.
I think it was it was quite soon, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very soon
and
after.
I was able to come.
Yeah. And
still totally naive at this point. I don't think we were worrying at all. We genuinely thought it was because...
But I think I now look back on it, and I remember that the look on her face, the woman who was doing the scan, I remember thinking, oh, she must think that I'm one of those worried mothers who will be really anxious about this, because she was being very sympathetic, and that's why I think that she had clocked something, but she couldn't see, right. And I just felt so much trust. I just was like, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. I just kind of didn't allow myself to go there. And then when we did go back for the scan, it must have been the next day or something, and we went in, and I remember we passed that room.
The consultation room. We both clocked the consultation room with a box of tissues on the table.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, that's
And I remember just so innocently and naively thinking, oh, that must be where they give bad news.
Yeah, that's where you go through bad news.
And
not even thinking for a moment we might end up being in there ourselves.
Yeah. And then they did the scan again, and then they took us into that room.
Yeah. She came out
with a piece of paper and a pen,
and
sat down and drew a diagram of her heart and the interrupted aortic arch. That's it. And then they left us to cry. And I remember you wearing a fitted suit jacket, and you put your arms around me, and I felt really worried that you were uncomfortable hugging me because your jacket was pulling on your arms.
I remember her saying she was really, I remember her saying how much she hated delivering this kind of news to first-time parents.
Yeah, I forgot that. Yeah.
She was brilliant. I mean, she was, of course, very professional and just straight up, and was just like, here's the facts. And that's when she flagged that they needed to potentially do some tests because
it's often a symptom.
It's often associated with the George syndrome.
Yeah. And so then we had tests.
And the risk of that is that it can trigger a miscarriage, can't it?
Yeah.
Is that right?
I think so, yeah.
So there was a risk in that, but
yeah.
I mean, we already had this information about how she wouldn't survive outside of the womb without having open heart surgery. I think she explained that to us then, what the procedure could be, but what we wanted to do was test.
Yeah, that she would need to, that was it, that she would need open heart surgery and would be in an induced coma for 3 months in Liverpool at Old Hay. And that seemed like a huge enough disruption in itself. And then was that when we went home? And was my mum there after the scan? And I was crying, and she said, even if you don't have the tests, I don't think you're strong enough to go through with this. I remember being really confused about what that meant. What is strong enough? What does that mean? I remember crying and feeling so alone. Okay, so then we had the tests, and then we waited. 2
weeks.
Yeah, God, it took forever.
It was really long.
It took forever.
A very long time because I think they were testing for multiple things.
Yeah. And then we got the news. They called when we were driving in the car.
Through humour, weren't we?
Yeah, and I saw the number. There was an unknown number, and you just immediately pulled over and they gave us the results.
And I guess in that moment, up until that point, we obviously had been doing some research into it and looking to see what it all meant. And I guess we've been trying to make up our mind on whether we could go through with it.
Yeah.
Because the nature of the George syndrome is quite complex, isn't it? But I think I remember reading or being told that there's so many things, issues or problems that could have affected her throughout her life. And that she could have had a whole load of them or just nothing.
Yeah. It just felt like so much and so overwhelming, and I guess we knew. Then we knew, and
we knew we couldn't. We knew we weren't in a position to, I guess, to support her in the way that she would need supporting.
Yeah.
And we had to make that decision. And then it had to be very quick because we were approaching 24 weeks.
Well, that's it. Then it was another 2 weeks because it was the 1st of December, and that was the last day, and it had to happen before midnight on that night before it became a bureaucratic.
Yeah.
And I remember those 2 weeks waiting for the termination. Just it felt like a tunnel. It felt like a tunnel waiting for death.
And she'd started to be really active as well, hadn't she?
Yeah.
I think we both felt her a lot and got very close to her. And I remember, I hope it's okay for me to say, I feel like I remember the feeling of you withdrawing from her and cutting off from her. I remember I used to talk to her. And I do remember just feeling so helpless and useless and not knowing how on earth I could be in a position to support you or to deal, like, just, I mean, how? Like, I don't understand. I have no idea what it's like to be carrying a child inside me and to be growing a child. That connection, like, was something incredibly hard from my perspective, or my, you know, to know what to do and how to be there for you and how to live through your, or like with your pain. Like, I felt completely useless. Apart from just, I guess, trying to be loved, you know, through love, I guess, be there, but...
Yeah, I felt so alone. I mean, I remember us holding hands a lot, and thank you, and just being very quiet and watching a lot of TV. And I remember finding a lot of comfort in the cat. Yeah. But I woke up every single morning into a nightmare, what felt like a nightmare, because I would forget while I was asleep and then wake up and remember and feel her kicking and see my belly, see the physical evidence of this baby inside me, and that I knew that there was going to be a definite day where she would die and we would meet her. And yeah, it was hell. It was hell.
Oh,
It was a very lonely hell. And then the day came. And they took us into...
It was the same room.
It was the same room.
It was the same room with the same woman.
She was so lovely.
And the midwife, who I can't remember her name, who also took great care of us.
Yeah. I remember just being in such awe that the precision of the needle to reach Alma's heart, to essentially inject her heart with poison.
So that's what they did, didn't they? It was a similar procedure in a way to the amniocentesis. It was in the same position, and a huge needle through the womb into the womb to basically inject her to stop it before then inducing pregnancy. Or birth, sorry.
The birth.
The birth. Just induced pregnancy,
And then I remember when the needle went in and I was just staring at those horrible ceiling tiles, and I saw these huge flashes of indigo blue light, and I guess in some ways I felt like that was saying goodbye.
It was really painful, and I remember you just found a point to focus on and gripped my hand. And I remember seeing the midwife look at would she be a consultant? Or especially, I've forgotten so much about it.
Yeah.
And I think it took her a couple of attempts. And then they were communicating silently between each other.
Yeah.
Just with kind of, gestures and whatever. And then she clearly finally delivered it successfully, and they paused while she was monitoring it with the ultrasound. And then gave her a little nod. And then she stood up and said, right, we'll leave you for a moment. And they left us, didn't they? To just be.
And then we waited. They induced birth, we waited, and...
How did we get... Like, we obviously just went straight to the birthing unit, didn't we? And they gave us a private room.
Yeah. And you read to me. And I just remember being very dark. I guess it was December, so it was an early evening, and then eventually I gave birth to her,
I do know that, I don't know what happened to me though, but something strange happened because I all of a sudden went to Marks and Spencer's food and I just bought a massive carrier bag full of like mini flapjacks and treats. So it was like some kind of party. I was like trying to give it away to the midwives. I was like, come on guys, let's have fun. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
I was obviously trying
those,
to just
like mini chocolate Rice Krispie squares.
Yeah, and sandwiches and crisps.
Sandwiches.
Yeah. I mean, it was never going to be Lucas Aiden Grapes, was it? When I went to Marks and Spencer's, but I don't know what happened. I felt like,
I guess it's you went to your comfort zone to get some tasty food.
Maybe, yeah. Well, we waited because it took hours to get out, I guess.
Yeah, it did. And then she was born like a minute to midnight.
Something like that. Yeah. It was so close.
Yeah, I wouldn't even be surprised if they like muffled the numbers or.
I don't know. No, I think she genuinely was. Because you were, by that point you decided to have some painkillers, haven't you? Some severe painkillers because you tried not to.
Yeah.
And I guess probably what we know now is that your body just wasn't ready to give birth.
Yeah, exactly. Because 24 weeks is 6 months. That's still like 3 months off.
Yeah.
For a full-term pregnancy.
Yeah.
So she came out and we held her and I was off my face.
Yeah.
And I feel really sad about that I couldn't stay awake to be with her because I kept on falling asleep, and I wish I could have spent more time just sitting with her. But at the same time...
No, it was an awkward one. It kind of felt...
Yeah, and it also felt like I felt so anxious wanting to spend time with her because I knew that she was going to have to leave at some point, and so I couldn't just rest and be with her. It's so complicated.
Oh, it is, yeah. And at that point, still having no knowledge or expectations or no understanding of how we might feel or what might be, having never been parents before, but also having not really spoken to anyone about it.
Yeah.
I think did you not find a blog post?
No,
I
searched.
Oh no, this is
I searched endlessly to find literature online anywhere about other people that had been through the experience, and I could not find anything. And so that's when I vowed I'm going to write about this, and because I can't be the only person, and it's so lonely. And and that's the thing, I wanted to know the details. Like, I want to know everything, the logistics of this. I want to know all of it. I don't feel squeamish. I need to know. And I felt like, I'll chop that. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's fine. I felt like everyone was kind of pussyfooting around. Telling me like what was actually going to happen. It's almost like some people, like some of the medical practitioners, felt nervous. They didn't want to traumatise me with the fear. It was very much like, we'll tell you when we get to that point. And I was like, no, but I want to know now. I want to know what I'm preparing myself for mentally.
Yeah.
And I totally understand why they would have been like that. But I wanted to read someone's personal account of it.
Yes, it was all very medical, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was all kind of just...
Yeah, exactly. And then I remember not wanting to take a photo of her because I thought, and considering I take photos of my breakfast, lunch and dinner, you know, the fact I didn't want to take photos of our baby, I think it's because it felt like she was sacred. She was sacred, and I didn't want to kind of cheapen her life in some ways through a photo. I
remember feeling it because I sat with her on my lap while you went into the bathroom.
Yeah.
With the midwife, where you delivered the placenta. And I remember sitting with her for a few minutes by myself and thinking, I wonder if I should just take a photo on my phone. But I just wanted to remember that moment. I didn't want to try and turn it into anything, because what would I have done with it?
I know, and that's another thing.
Check this out, guys. What we did last night.
Exactly.
You know,
I kind of didn't want her to exist digitally. I wanted, she was a pure soul, and I wanted her to just exist as that and not exist on a phone somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
But then they offered to take a photo of her and said, look, we will take a photo of her, and we will keep it on file for you if you ever want to see it.
I think knowing that from, I guess, their experience, that people often change their minds. Feel like they need to revisit that moment to grieve or something.
And they took her away. And I slept, and then they gave us another room. And hospitals always make me think of Come Dine With Me, or Come Dine With Me now always make me think of hospitals, because we lay in that bed and watch Come Dine With Me for all day.
Eating white bread, toast and butter and drinking tea. Yeah. It was amazing that we had that space and that time.
Yeah.
They didn't rush us at all, did they? They were just like, you can stay as long as you need to stay.
Yeah. It was a really sunny day when we left. Maybe it must have been the day. It must have been the next day. It must have been the next day or the day after. And I remember standing outside the hospital. It had those big glass walls and windows, and you could see all the light and the sun and the sky reflected in them. And I saw my reflection, and I was wearing this huge cardigan. I wish I knew where that cardigan was actually. And I was like, okay, this is it now. She's gone.
We're leaving the birthing unit alongside all these other parents, and we're leaving without anything, or anybody.
And so we had to get through Christmas.
Yeah.
And the whole of December. And I think I tried to go back to work like a week after. Had a complete breakdown. Also, I was drinking heavily just to numb the pain, which didn't help. And I think I had a breakdown, and my boss was just like, look, Jav, just come back in a couple of months. So I threw myself into making our house as beautiful as possible for the whole month of December. Foraging, decorating. I think we threw a dinner party for our close friends to celebrate. It was meant to be like a pre-Christmas.
Yeah.
But we decided, okay, well, it'll be a celebration of Alma. We were like...
Oh, we did, didn't we?
We threw ourselves into eating, drinking and celebrating. And friendship. And that was something that I remember so clearly from that time, was the outpouring of love.
Yeah.
From friends and family and acquaintances.
Yeah.
The cards, the flowers, the emails, people sharing their own experiences. I really felt like love, a huge part of losing her, brought so much love into our life. And I remember sitting at my desk, missing her and wishing that I had her to hold, and thinking, well, if I don't have her to hold, what can I do? So I started writing poems, because that was some way of somehow being close to her, or, I don't know, having her. God, sometimes I can talk about this without crying and flinching, and like other times I just
comes in waves, doesn't it?
Lose it. Sorry.
It's okay.
And again, it was like I didn't have. She had brought creativity back to me in some ways through being pregnant with her, and then it was one of the only ways that I could then process her death was. And Fee, the poet who I spoke to for one of the episodes of the podcast, she described creativity as like being such an effective way of ejecting pain from your body. And she's so true. It's so true. Like, I feel so fortunate that I have that I can channel pain and process pain in that way, whether it be writing or making the house beautiful or whatever, whatever, it's a way of putting that love and that pain somewhere. And I had so much love. I had so much love that I didn't know what to do with because she wasn't there to hold her. And and then January came. Sorry, interrupt me if you need to.
No, it's fine. It's making me think about what I was going through.
I know, because I'm trying to think. I think I watched a lot of The Walking Dead.
Yes, yeah, we did.
Because it's like, wow, their lives are worse.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. It's interesting you talking about that. I'm just trying to think if how it came out in me, and I don't think it did for a long time because I think my focus was you.
Yeah.
Because I sat with you through it, but I'd been so incapable of doing anything to protect you from it. And I guess we had to sit and go through it. And I think possibly it came out later, I think.
I remember months later, we went to Lisbon.
May, wasn't it?
No, it was March. It was with you.
March. Oh yes. Yeah.
And we went to Lisbon, and you started taking photos again in a way that you hadn't in a long time, and you found beauty in that way, I think.
Yeah. No, I do remember that.
But we can't skip the funeral.
This is where it gets pretty dark, and where our humour comes in.
But that was another huge part of how we dealt with it, actually, was really dark humour and being very, very honest about it, and in some ways wanting to really shock people.
Well, I think it was that thing, wasn't it? Because we wanted to know, and I guess it was like, we wanted to know all the details and wanted to know how it would feel, and then we went through it. And I think it's that thing of just being honest about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And saying, no, this is because we knew that it happens to other people, it must happen to other people, and actually you never get anywhere if you just skirt around it.
Yeah.
And it just felt like, no, actually, we wanted people to know what we've been through.
Yeah. I remember using the words "dead baby" and "killed our baby" a lot.
Killed our baby,
because it was like I kind of had to go that brutal.
Yeah.
I had to be that brutal for myself as well to process it.
I think we still are.
I know.
Which is fun.
And so the funeral. I remember that was weird, getting dressed up for your baby's funeral.
Yeah.
And you wore a suit.
Well, again, we didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
I mean...
And I remember wearing these black tights and black heels and a black mini skirt and black top, and just thinking, I look too attractive to be going to my baby's funeral. I look too glamorous. But I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to go in a shroud.
Well, I guess at that point we'd probably already we had decided that we were going to celebrate what we'd had as opposed to mourn it, and I guess that's where we've always come from, hasn't it? It's like so when we had the party with our friends, it was celebrate her for what she brought to us while we were before any of that happened. And I guess that was a way of us processing our expectations as first-time parents, and then not having that child there. Just to celebrate what she did bring.
She brought so much. So, okay, we made our way to the Southern Cemetery in Chorlton, and they asked us for our names.
Oh yeah,
baby Barry Tipler, or baby Barry.
No, we didn't even put a name. Oh no, yeah, because we hadn't named her by.
No, we hadn't named her. No, we had. We had because. When
you named her after
I forgot this. I named her after you gave birth because we knew that if we were going to have a girl, we'd call her Alma, and if we were going to have a boy, we were going to call him Griffin. And we had a girl, and so we knew that she was called Alma. I remember that now. But anyway, there was this weird naming thing at the funeral.
Yeah.
And then we went in and sat at the back, and it was this little chapel, and at the front of the chapel there was a stage with red velvet curtains. And then there were all these other couples sat in front of us, leaning on each other's shoulders, weeping. And then what would it be, a priest or a reverend? I don't know. A religious person stood up next to these velvet curtains, and he read out.
Welcomed us to the club, basically.
Oh, Jesus.
In the new clubhouse. Yeah.
And he named all of the babies that were there. Because were the curtains open first? Yes, remember,
the curtains were open.
That's it. We walked in, the curtains were open, but there were 12 baby-sized coffins.
Little caskets, yeah.
Caskets, yeah, on there. And then as the curtains closed, they started playing Bar Bar Black Sheep on the organ.
Yeah. And there was somebody who was really, really traumatised. Remember that?
Oh, it was awful.
That mother, she was trying to search. She got up in panic and she was trying to search to find the casket for that baby, and they had to go and ask her to sit down, which felt really harsh, actually. It was quite
so awful.
But it then got to the point when the music started that we're
basically giggling at the back.
Giggling at the back,
absurdity of
the
it.
absurdity, because it felt like the Muppet Show. I'm sorry to the other parents, but it did. It felt like it felt like at some point these like little fetuses were going to get up and start.
Oh, it was so weird, John. It was so weird.
You know, like.
Oh my God, it was so weird. Like the way it was just staged and. What a weird choice of song. Why would you play a nursery rhyme?
Well, you know, but I think the thing is that comes to it is that we're not religious at all, and I think there were probably some people there that are more used to that kind of setting or that kind of thing, and it meant something to them.
I know.
Which it didn't to us.
I know, we're just harsh, soulless people.
Well, no, but it's also an environment that we just don't know how to kind of
be in.
Yeah. Like we didn't know what any of the formality was or what to expect, and so we just kind of sat there, waiting,
not knowing,
and then what happened? Did they just close the curtains and that was it?
Yeah, and then we left. We walked out, and then we went to the pub and got drunk. Yeah. And the lovely, lovely barmaid there
clocked that we'd been to funeral straight away.
Yeah, and she said, "Would you mind if I asked who?" And I took great relish in telling her, "Our baby."
Our baby.
And then she gave us 2 double whiskies on the house. Yeah. And I think we then went to San Juan for tapas.
We did. San Juan for tapas, yeah.
And
I guess back to the things that fill us with comfort and joy.
Yeah.
Eating nice food and being out and nice wine and
yeah. I remember you took a photo of me actually.
I remember that.
And then once we went to get the ashes, that was another weird thing. This is something like...
Not to lay a baby to rest.
Yeah, I was like, who's mum? I was like, I don't know who mum is. What mum? I was like, oh, you mean me? Because I was so unused to being I wasn't a mum. In my eyes, I wasn't a mum. Because we were essentially like sleepwalking through it, or zombified. You know, our brains were not working. We were in deep trauma and shock. And people were asking all these decisions from us constantly, and I was just like, I don't know what you're talking about, whatever, you make the decision. But we took the ashes took her up to the hill in Glossop, which was my hill where I always went when I felt overwhelmed or sad. And
was that on...
It was on Valentine's
Day, wasn't it?
Yes, it was Valentine's Day.
By the time we got the ashes
and then buried her under the moss.
With some bulbs?
Yeah.
Planted some bulbs.
Yeah. And I mean, it's pretty bloody bleak up there, and it was raining and windy. It was not some kind of like picturesque, sweet, like lovely spot. But it somehow, because the sky is so vast there, it felt like she could be beneath the sky and the sound of the grouse. And
take care of her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've taken the boys back there since. Of course, they don't know what on earth any of it meant, but
I think it made sense to them, you know. And I think I've talked to them since, haven't we, about Alma, and they sort of get it, particularly Griff.
Didn't Elwyn once mention his sister?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think that's beautiful. I think it's lovely that because it will be, if they just grow up with it being a normal thing, and understanding it, then it won't be kind of some crazy shock or feel like something that we've kept from them.
And as they get older, because we still always celebrate her birthday on the 1st of December, so as they get older they'll understand that we mark that day. And it doesn't have to be mournful, at all. It can just be like, this is a significant day in our lives that we revisit and then I really feel like that's when our life really changed. I feel like
it really did.
Everything changed for both of us. The way we interpreted the world, the way we valued friendship, because I knew that we valued it before then, but I think that really shifted. It was like it upped a gear. It did, and we both started to really reassess what we wanted from life. And I realised that I wanted to pursue something creative, because I guess it suddenly felt like, okay, well, life is chaotic and messy and potentially very short, and you have no idea what's going to happen next. So do what you want to do. And I think I started to have a very clear idea that my purpose was different to purely facilitating other people's creativity, and I started to think very seriously about how I could channel that. And
sorry, the fan has just come on the oven again.
And then we got pregnant with Griffin, and so I eventually went on maternity, and it kind of felt like, okay, well, this is again another shift. Maybe this is time. Hey, not Meg. To try and see where that takes me. And we decided to move to Hebden once Griff was about 1 or younger. And I really feel like if it hadn't been for Alma, I don't know if
absolutely.
I would have decided to take myself seriously creatively. I hate that expression, taking yourself seriously, because it's not about, but I guess it's about honouring your creativity, and it's something that had been within me for so long, and I'd not really known how, what shape it needed to take, because it took so many different shapes. And so I think because it took so many different shapes, acting, writing, illustrating, styling, putting tables together, I didn't really know how to, and I didn't have the confidence. But then losing her made me look inwards, I guess, and just decide to do it, to actually just do it. And that's why I feel like she's the most enormous gift. She brought so much love, and in some way she brought me back to me. She also, deeply traumatised both of us, and brought a lot of pain and a lot of grief that we're still really recovering from. But I guess it's that thing, isn't it, that it doesn't have to be all negative. And I guess that is also the complexity and the madness and the beauty of life, is that it can be all of it at once. It can be so much pain, and it can, completely destroy you and break you, but it can be incredibly beautiful. And some things that I did manage to piece myself back together after having her were really beautiful, and the other parts have, 8 years on, I'm still, the fact that I'm still crying about it 8 years later, and that it really, I am still bereft, and I'm still grieving, and I'm still grieving for who I was before that.
Yeah, of course.
Because it does change you. It completely changes you. And I remember brushing my teeth, and a Kylie Minogue song came on. I remember thinking, I'm never going to listen to music in the same way again. I'm never going to hear it in the same way again, because in some ways everything is tinged now. Because that's it. It felt like a loss of naivety. It felt like a loss of innocence, didn't it? It was like, okay, this is life. Really is intensely connected to death, and I guess in some ways it makes you live in a more visceral way, possibly.
Yeah.
Or it can be.
Well, it did for us.
For us, that's how it can.
Yeah.
I don't think it does for everyone, but I think for us it
Yeah.
because you feel the pain so acutely, you feel the beauty so even more acutely. The shade and the light. And it's lucky that we've never had another girl, because I've never been able to choose another name.
Can I ask if you remember when we discovered ARC?
I can't remember.
Because I know we ended up doing the 3 Peak challenge over 3 weekends to raise money for the unit that took great care of us. We raised like, what, $3,500 or something like that.
Yeah.
Amazing support. And we did that kind of, I guess, for her, but for them, and I guess because we wanted to contribute to making sure that unit could take care of other people that found themselves in our position.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting now knowing that ARC is there, that like how it would have been for us had we known, or how it would have been able to tap into that and the stories that they share, the people that have definitely gone through.
Yeah. The
Similar
value
things.
is the value of that being there, because that's the thing. There's so I see posts from them that pop up on Instagram, and it's often quotes from other parents about how they feel. I just like, I could have written that.
Yeah.
I've said those words. I've said those exact words, and it makes you realise that like you need that, because it is so lonely.
Yeah.
It is so lonely because people still don't talk about it, because there's so much taboo, and it is a really delicate subject, because you are playing God essentially, and you know, and there's absolutely there is no judgment, and because I remember like really questioning ourselves, who are we to make this choice on this person's life, on this baby's life?
Still think that.
Yeah, but it essentially has to come down to a personal choice, and that just needs to be respected.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we had that conversation with a friend, a very good friend of a very good friend, last Christmas, who we met. I can't even. I know. When we met his daughter, who's what, 12, 13, and basically had exactly the same condition, and was living a perfectly healthy, normal life. And we had a very open and tearful conversation with him, and he totally got it. There's no judgment at all. He got it. And we just had a massive group hug. We drank a lot of wine by that point. But how crazy was that?
I know, it's like seeing the other path, one of the other paths.
Yeah, and you never know, can
been.
you? You just, this is the thing, you have to make the decision that you have to make at the time.
Yeah.
How nuts was that?
Yeah. It did feel like this kind of full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was totally freaked out.
We were all kind of gazing at her.
What are you looking at? Right, well, I'm going to serve some food up.
Okay.
Do you want to stand here and...
Let's sit down and eat.
It doesn't sound great for people hearing us talk. I believe this is your first time.
Eating spaghetti squash.
Spaghetti squash. It's been 14 years in the making.
Yeah.
I'm trying to...
It feels like an occasion, so thank you.
Roasted spaghetti squash with
It looks amazing.
garlic, courgette, tomato sauce.
I mean, look at your autumnal colours, it's beautiful.
Get your camera out, Joe.
I'm already...
ARC Antenatal are a UK charity offering support for those dealing with antenatal results and choices. If you or someone close to you has been through the experience of ending a wanted pregnancy after a prenatal diagnosis, ARC are there to provide non-directive information and support before, during and after antenatal screening. You can find them online, arc-uk.org, and on Instagram at arcantenatal.